the arterial wall causes a reflexive vasoconstriction. As long as pressure continues, the vessel will stay constricted. Click the weightlifter to make him relax.
Should we torture him further?
When pressure against the vessel wall is reduced, the vessel dilates. Changes in blood pressure therefore directly affect the constriction or dilation of the arteriole, and so glomerular blood flow. Click the weightlifter to see this activity again.
It's okay. Poor guy.
A second regulatory mechanism is the sensitivity of the macula densa cells of the juxtaglomerular apparatus to the filtrate osmolarity and or the rate of filtrate flow in the terminal portion of the ascending loop of Henle. Click the high osmolarity button to see this autoregulation mechanism at work. A higher than normal concentration of sodium and chloride ions and or a high filtrate flow rate in the terminal portion of the ascending loop of Henle indicates reduced reabsorption. This condition can be due to a high rate of filtrate flow through the tubules, resulting from an increased GFR. This high osmolarity stimulates the macula densa cells to release vasoconstrictor chemicals, which cause the afferent arteriole to constrict. The result is a lower GFR, slower filtrate flow, and increased tubular reabsorption of sodium and chloride ions. Now click the low osmolarity button to see its effect on the regulation of the GFR. A low rate of filtrate flow and decreased levels of sodium and chloride ions in the terminal portion of the ascending loop of Henle is also sensed by the macula densa cells. This condition is usually the result of slow filtrate flow due to low blood pressure and low GFR. In response, these cells initiate two effects. One, they decrease secretion of the vasoconstrictor chemicals. This leads to dilation of the arteriole and so increases blood flow, glomerular hydrostatic pressure, and the GFR. And two, the macula densa cells signal the juxtaglomerular cells of the afferent and efferent arterioles to release renin into the bloodstream. In addition, when the arterial blood pressure drops below 80 millimeters of mercury, the JG cells sense this critical condition directly and release renin in response. Now, click the JG cells of the afferent arteriole to see the effect of renin on the regulation of the GFR. In the bloodstream, renin triggers a series of events that increase the level of the hormone angiotensin II. You can see this process in greater detail in the blood pressure regulation topic of the cardiovascular system module. In the kidney, increased angiotensin II causes constriction of the efferent arteriole. This causes the blood flow out of the glomerulus to slow, thus increasing the glomerular hydrostatic pressure and restoring the glomerular filtration rate to normal. Angiotensin II also stimulates the release of the hormone aldosterone. The effects of aldosterone in the kidney will be discussed in the late filtrate processing topic of this module. Sympathetic nerve fibers innervate all blood vessels of the kidney as an extrinsic regulation mechanism. During normal daily activity, they have minimal influence. However, during periods of extreme stress or blood loss, as shown by this cartoon character, sympathetic stimulation overrides the autoregulatory mechanisms of the kidney. Click a sympathetic nerve to override autoregulation. Increased sympathetic discharge causes intense constriction of all renal blood vessels. Increased sympathetic discharge causes intense constriction of all renal blood vessels. Increased sympathetic discharge causes increased 2 and 2. The lower GFR reduces fluid loss, thus maintaining a higher blood volume and blood pressure for other vital functions. As you can see, renal function has almost stopped. Reduction in filtration cannot go on indefinitely, as waste products and metabolic imbalances increase in the blood. Autoregulation mechanisms are now ineffective in preventing acute renal failure. To increase the cartoon character's blood volume and blood pressure in order to restore normal filtration, click the emergency call button. When fluid is given intravenously, the blood volume increases. With increasing blood volume, Notice the gradual rise in blood pressure, reduction in sympathetic discharge, and restoration of renal functioning.
Oh, there was an error, huh? Not, is it intravenously or intravenously? I think intravenously, okay? But anyway.
Here's a summary of what we've covered. Glomerular filtrate is formed by filtration of water and small solutes through the filtration membrane. Net filtration pressure is the glomerular hydrostatic pressure minus the opposing forces of capsular hydrostatic pressure and glomerular osmotic pressure. Blood pressure and flow in the nephron is monitored and controlled by renal autoregulation mechanisms in order to maintain a relatively steady glomerular filtration rate. During periods of severe blood loss, sympathetic stimulation overrides the renal autoregulatory mechanisms to shunt the blood to other critical areas.
Okay, folks, that's it for lecture. We'll take